All right, so we are very excited to be recording today with today's guest, especially so to be doing it in person. I feel like I've wound the clock back to when you were on tour and I was on tour, and the world was a different place. But in short, he is a core pillar of the Coolie Kids phenomenon that dominated surfing at the turn of the century. Winner of the 2003 Quicksilver Pro Gold Coast, he spent nearly a decade trading blows with the world's best on the championship tour, the likes of Kelly Slater, Andy Irons, Taj Burrow, Bobby Martinez, Mick Fanning, Joel Parkinson, and many others. And while it's been a minute since he's stepped away from the championship tour, as we saw in the Fisher and Friends exhibition over the weekend at Snapper Rocks, he hasn't lost a single step. He absolutely rips. He's still giving it to Mick and Joel any chance he gets. But Dean, Dingo, Morrison, thank you so much for joining us on the lineup today, man.
Yeah, grateful. Thanks, Dave.
So let's start there. We had a World Champs heat here at the Bonsoy Gold Coast Pro presented by GWM. It went very, very well. My understanding is that Kelly would have preferred to have performed better in the opening exhibition. And so he was angling for another run at it. Mm-hmm. And that other run not only involved Paul Fisher, but Chelsea Hedges and yourself. How'd you get the call up for the Fisher and Friends heat, and what were you thinking heading into it?
I don't know. I missed a call from him, and he was on social media, and then I kind of seen he tried to call me, but I was busy at the time. And then I got a text and saying, "Oh, you're in. I want you to come surf." So I was super excited, but I was also just super excited to just go down and watch them. You know, see all my mates going at it, and especially Fish. You know, he's one of my best mates, and I know how much surfing meant to him at one time, and he was a really dedicated guy to surfing. So and I knew how much that would mean to him being out in front of the crowd in a WSL event. So I was the energy was moving with excitement, you know, for him to go down and watch him and heckle him and sledge him, you know. So it was good.
What about with your own surfing? Were you a little nervous? I mean, it didn't look like it in the heat. You're killing it, but I'm curious just because you got all the world champs, you got everyone's paying attention. Fisher is, we were joking this week, he is unquestionably the most successful professional surfer in the history of the sport. It's not even close. But a lot of attention on the heat. But for yourself, were you nervous at all? Or were you just like, I just get to go surf snapper with these guys?
No, I was. It was like this, you know, I think any time it's just that performance, you know, you want to perform in front of a crowd. And I'm used to that feeling, but I hadn't felt it in a long time, you know. So it was nice to kind of move into that.
Right.
Just go, oh wow, I see that, you know. I don't want to stuff up. I don't want to do this, and just it was cool to feel all them feelings again.
Awesome. You know, one of the things we've done the last couple of seasons is we've launched the Vissla CT Shaper rankings, which is essentially the shaping world title. Matt Biolis and Mayhem won last year, but my part-time co-host and I, Mitch Salazar, we're constantly kind of egging JS. You know, we're like, JS has got this amazing history and reputation. He's rebuilding some sort of CT talent, but you've been a long-time team rider for Jason Stevenson. When you're getting ready for the Fisher and Friends heat, do you have a board that's your go-to board? Do you call him up and be like, hey, I might need a freshie, like on quick notice? What's your quiver look like these days?
Yeah. You know what? I froth that much that I'm always down there. They know how much I'm frothing. So they go, oh, okay, and I just grab boards off the rack, you know. And I actually had a really good board that a new model, like from it's like a kind of like replica of one of Joel's boards from 2009.
Yeah.
But it's just got like a really good feel to it, and you kind of surf really tight in the pocket. So I was down there hunting one of them, but Dusty, I left my board at the beach and grabbed Dusty's the other day, and his was like an inch longer and a touch wider. And so he took that one back, and then I had his, so I was just riding that. So it wasn't, but you know, these days, you know, I can just grab a board off the rack, and they're, you know, they're amazing.
Yeah.
They feel unreal, and you know, I'm not going for like the 1% better or competing at a high level. So you know, it's perfect for me.
Well, it still looked like it went amazing for you out there. I'm curious, like you were out in the water. And I've noticed this a few times. Like we used to have those masters event and all the older surfers would get like really animated and dedicated when it was coming up, even if it was just a one-off event. I remember we had a heat a few years ago at Surf Ranch with the WSL founders, and it was like MR and Kanga and Sean and Bugs, and they all took it so seriously. And this last week when Kelly was sort of, pushing to have another heat because he's so competitive, I'm like, all these other people are hyper competitive too. Was it serious out in the water when you were there? Where, because you guys are all so close, but I'm curious if the singlet goes on and, you're in a heat and it's like, no, we're here to work kind of thing.
Well, I think it's like just being in the water with them guys. Like everyone's reading the ocean pretty similarly. Everyone's just super tuned in, and everyone's reading the bank, where to sit, like where the swells are moving. So like usually like in it when it's really crowded, you can move before someone else does because you're kind of feeling it. Right. Whereas these guys, they're tapped in too, and they're like it's hard to get room. Like even Kelly out there was going, I'd rather 400 guys out here than all you guys. But yeah, it is every time I surf with Mick and Joel, it's that like, it pushes me. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. But it's something that without that feeling, I would have never have pushed myself anywhere near where I could have got with surfing,
Well, as you said too, like, there could be 400 people out there, but with the 8 that you were all of such a high level and you all read it very similarly. Like if I'd been thrown out there, it would have been great because I'm sort of symbiotic with you guys. I'm not looking for the waves you guys are looking for. I'm scrapping on the inside or whatever. But as you said, it's like you get that level of surfer there. You're all trying to sit on the same spot, trying to get in the same part of the wave.
Yeah. And it's just, like surfing's a game of, it's not so much thought. You're more like tapped in and feeling where the ocean's moving, right? Because it's not a consistent pattern. There's a pattern there, but it's not like, okay, give me 15 seconds and it'll come. It's like a different swell could hit a different angle on the bank, and then you're reading the bank, and then you're kind of moving without even thinking about it. Yeah. And, like Kelly's right, he reads the ocean as good as anyone. Joel, Mick, it's just, and so you're there and you're trying to get away, and then you're not, and then they're in the spot, you're like, oh no, I'm not going to get that. And then and then you're like trying to position yourself that they're not going to come in behind you. Like it's just, there's a lot going on without actually thinking about it. But, when you look back and analyze it, you're like, oh wow, there is a fair bit happening there.
Well, we talked about a little bit before we started recording. You stepped away from the championship tour after the 2010 season. Mm-hmm. And I guess because we're in the age of social media, but the world hasn't seen a ton of you. But when we do, it's free surfing videos or like slab strike missions, or we joked about emerging to smash Mick and Joel in the Rival series, or this past weekend at Fisher and Friends. You're still ripping. But I'm curious, in 2024, what does Dean Morrison get up to week? What's your life like?
I'm just a single dad. I take care of my son full time. Yep. And that's the greatest gift I've ever been given. It's just making sure school lunches, pick him up from school, dinner, clean the house. And that's kind of how the day goes. And, I'll get to do some things during the day. But, I'm blessed to be able to live that life. I'm doing a project in Bali. Oh, cool. With Claw from Rip Curl. So we're opening a Rip Curl shop and amazing. A board store. And so, there's little things that just being able to be a partner with him and a couple of other guys that I can still learn and grow. Yeah. And that's above everything, it's just to be there for my son. Yeah. And then everything else, just, if I have a bit of spare time, I'll surf and, try to train or something like that. Yeah. But other than that, it's, I'm blessed to, have a 7-year-old son that I can, we get to go adventures around the world and, and everything else. So it's a beautiful time in my life. Yeah. I mean, parenthood's such a profound experience for everyone, but it
it feels like within the surfing world, it has an even more intense impact. I think for a lot of us, I throw myself in there as well, just because, we all come to surfing for different reasons, but the ocean is also kind of a surrogate parent. The tour is sort of a mix of people that are kind of joining a family on tour as well, but it's not static, right? Like when you're on tour and you're traveling around and it's just not stable. And so I know I've found, and I've noticed it in a couple of other folks on tour, both that compete and work on tour that become parents. It's such a beautifully stabilizing force in your life when you go, I just want to be there for my son or my daughter as much as possible. And as you said, like create a routine. Have you found that, just because obviously you were on tour for a long time too, and just it's such a different like tone to life, right? When you have a child.
Yeah, and and like you said, it's just we get to create these stable environments. For them, it's something that that I never had as a child, but it served me for what my say karmic journey has been.
Sure, yeah.
To be able to show up and learn the lessons that I've learned, because in this life there's things that I probably signed up for that I would have to come to an understanding of myself.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's been good with that to be, to go into the stuff that I felt like was holding me back, with a lot of fears from when I was a kid that I didn't realize I had.
Yes. Yeah.
And then to go into it at a time and go, oh, wow, well, what's this here? Oh, okay, that's why I create all these patterns in my life that never seem to work out, and I'm full of, resentment or fear or whatever. Okay, well, how do I get through that? I have some really cool people in my life. I have a program that I do that gives me freedom from some lineage stuff that could have been in the line for a while. That maybe that I wouldn't have seen before if I wasn't still enough, and that if I didn't have my son, where I didn't look at myself in a way where I went, hey man, you're making some choices here that are going to affect your son later on in life. What do you want to do about that? Yeah.
Isn't that interesting though? Like, cause I totally hear what you're saying. And I think that's actually a mark of someone who's really selfless, in the sense that similarly, like I didn't care to excavate whatever happened when I was younger until I had a child, because then you're thinking like, okay, like, and not that I'm not knocking my child or anything, but more just, I didn't ever think to understand it until you become a parent. You're like, okay, the better I understand it, the better parent I can be for my kid, because I'll try to pass along the things that were good and maybe try to protect them from the things that weren't.
Yeah. And, and if you don't know, you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
And you're just doing the best you can with what you've got.
Yep.
And sometimes, like I know with myself, there's been things in my life where I've gone, oh, well, that didn't work out. And then all of a sudden I'm a victim to that situation. It's them. But really I chose that situation, and there was an opportunity there for me to grow within that. Okay, well, and it's just being able to sit still for me through it and go, geez, that's an old wound, that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's a lot of fear around that. I mean, how do I move through that? And then it's just like, you don't really have to do anything. It's just your awareness brings a healing through it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, I have some people where I can talk about that when I'm moving through them hard kind of feelings, rather than, there was a time when I just wanted to get away from them.
Yeah.
And, that's probably why with surfing I was so ambitious, because I wanted to be something. I wanted to be someone, because there was always this unworthiness and this not good enough feeling.
Right, yeah.
So I kind of attached myself to that, which, it was really good until it's not, right? Yeah. And then that all of a sudden you're still reacting to that situation, and then other things start coming into your life, like other experiences, to make you look at it. And if you don't want to look at it, then it becomes avoidance, right? You pick things outside of yourself, whether it's relationships, drugs, alcohol, it could be anything, but it's because I feel uncomfortable inside. And, that's kind of today I have that awareness, like I'm far from perfect, but it's progress, not perfection, as they say. And I'm just moving forward. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it's always forward.
Well, as you said too, like surfing, it can be such a healthy outlet and pursuit, but it also has it also opens you up to so many distractions should you want to choose that. And as you said, like where it's like, I want to avoid how I'm feeling, so I can pick any of these other things and I can avoid that as long as I want. But as you said, it's good until it's not, Yeah.
And it's being able to get honest with ourselves to pull ourselves out of that, not choosing everything from outside of us and going, well, it's that person there,
right?
Or it's that experience there, because that's why I feel like this. The whole world's got to change so Dean can be okay. Right. And then I start having
this makes sense to me. Yeah. Right.
Then I have these expectations I have on people, and then I get up, start getting hurt because they're not showing up the way I want them to be. And you're like, whoa, buddy, let's just, know, everyone's doing the best with what they've got. You got to just, clean your backyard and you'll be okay.
Yeah. No. Well, man, that is amazing. I appreciate you sharing that. That's incredible. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll wind the clock back on Dingo a little bit more.
Awesome.
All right, we're back at the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan here with Dean Dingo Morrison. Dingo, before the break, we were talking about being fathers and family, and can we wind the clock a little bit back on you, your upbringing here on the Gold Coast? What was your situation like? And maybe take us up through meeting Rabbit and starting to spend time with Wayne Bartholomew.
So I was, I grew up here in Coolangatta, Tweed Heads, and it was, it was tough. Both my parents, had addiction, alcohol problems, and I think. Anyone that's grown up in that environment knows that it's really unstable, for a young child that depends on two people to help them navigate through life. And when they're not there, you kind of grow up with some abandonment issues, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because the people that were supposed to protect you weren't able to be present enough to be there.
Yeah.
So, that kind of was my drive to succeed at something. And then my dad used to read me surf mags and things like that, and I just fell in love with surfing from a really young age, and I just loved everything about it. I used to tell people that I was going to be a pro surfer and stuff when I was so young, and I was barely even surfing, I just for some reason I could feel that that's what I wanted to do. And then later, when I was about 10 or 11, I met Rabbit.
Yeah.
And he could see how determined I was, and I think he related to me growing up around town and, and seeing that that I needed help to, to navigate life.
Yeah.
And so probably when I was about 12 or 13, he didn't really know what was going on in the home environment, but I think one day everything kind of exploded and he's seen it go on. And he goes, man, you come with me. And so now I live with him. And, he would just give me these goals where I would just, you got to surf 18 times a week and do this and that. And, and as a young kid dealing with all this stuff that you don't know how to deal with gave me a real focus.
And good structure too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that is what I needed at the time. And then we, it was just, we'd surf, every morning before school and would have heats and stuff. And it was a really amazing time, and I got so much gratitude for Rabbit, and on Father's Day I'll call him and things like that.
Yeah.
But he really kind of gave me a rope and gave me a way out of what was going on for me at the time.
Sure.
And it was just like that. And then I started doing contests and stuff and started doing well, and then we just, and then getting on the tour.
Yeah.
And then grew up with Mick and Joel around town, and you know, we were just always hanging out like every, you know, since we were about 12, 13.
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
How'd you meet Mick and Joel?
I met Joel in '92 at the Queensland titles. I think we're in the under 14s.
Had he moved down here yet, or was he still up?
He was still up the Sunshine Coast.
Okay, yep.
But I seen this kid, he had stickers on his boards and he had this swagger about him. I was like, who's that? He had like Billabong stickers. I was like, oh. So I went up to him and just started talking to him. He was probably a little bit like, who is this kid? I was like, hey. And then we started surfing heats throughout the day, and I was watching his heats. I was going, man, this kid's unbelievable, you know? And I think like he must have been 10, and he'd already been in the Aussie titles the year before.
Yeah.
You know, and we were just at the Queensland titles at this time, but you know, he was just mature already.
Yeah.
And we surfed a semi-final, and I beat him, I think. I was like, what? I was so stoked. And then we kept in touch, and then we kept running into each other all the time. And then I started riding for Billabong too. And then Billabong started taking us away at a really young age, like with Vince Lauder and stuff. They had a really good Grom program. We'd go away with like guys like Margot and like Heath Walker and Guy Walker. Just all the, you know, as a kid, you know, getting to surf with older guys and connect was, you know, it was really special. So and then we started kind of developing. I'd go up and stay with him, and we just kind of, you know, formed the friendship from early days.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then Mick, his brother Sean was competing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mick was just his little brother, you know, and he just was kind of hanging around, and we would hang around a bit, and Mick was just kind of, you know, he was just cruising.
Yeah.
You know, and then I just remember this one day, I think we were about 14 or 15, and Joel come to school and just, he was just shocked and said, man, you got to see how good Mick is surfing. Like, it honestly, like, felt like it happened overnight.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it was like me and Joel, and then, like, Mick was just Sean, you know, like, he had Ed and Sean and Pete, like, younger brother, you know, and then he was just kind of there, and then you said, mate, he's like, yeah, I can see the you know.
Rattled.
Yeah, I can see he was rattled. I was like, oh, wow. And then I was like, what? I was like, he just got, you know, it was just like that. And, yeah, and then we were just always surfing together. Like, you know, we'd surf together weekends. We'd, you know, do what kids do when we're 13, 14, 15, you know, go out and, you know, just go to little parties and stuff. But we would surf ridiculous amounts. Like, no matter what, we'd be out there.
Yeah.
And it just progressed from there, you know. It wasn't, you know, we just traveled together. We'd kind of be, you know, it wasn't like, it just was, right?
Yeah.
It was just
easy and natural.
Yeah.
I was telling Rabbit this last week, and I said, you know, I worked at Rip Curl Surf Center in San Clemente in high school and college, so it was like late 90s, early 2000s, and I was saying, you know, it's hard. I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it's like we didn't have social media. We didn't have like a lot of the internet, so like what we would get are the sort of Australian exports, you know, and we at the shop, you know, and we get Tracks magazine or something, or we'd get 3 Degrees by like Matty Jai, and everything kind of hit at the same time. It was like, I think the Tweed River sand bypass and those first few swells of the actual Superbank were kind of late 90s around that time, maybe early 2000s, and it timed so well with the ascension of the Coolie Kids with you guys. And I remember being in the shop in Southern California, we were just like, oh my, like, who are these guys? And look at this wave, and like DHDs and JSs, and we're blowing away at Chilis, you know. And I'm curious, at the time, like it seemed like such a concerted marketing vehicle, at least in America, but you were a part of it over here. Did it feel different for you compared to, you know, when you were just kids, or was it just more of the same?
I think it just kind of happened naturally. But I remember there was a lot of energy moving around us at the time. You know, once we all qualified together, like we're on the tour together. I think we just turned 20.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and then we're at each other's 21st and stuff, and just naturally it was just going on. You know, and but we were like, it was going on around us.
Yeah.
But it was always the same with us.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, well, this has been exactly the same as when it was, you know, when we were competing against each other 6-7 years ago. And no, you know, it was just the same.
Yeah.
But there was more hype around it.
Did you feel like when you qualified for the tour, I guess I'll just speak for yourself, do you think that you were, I guess fully developed's not the word I'm looking for, but did you feel like when you qualified that you had the confidence to go, I'm as good or better than the rest of the field, I can win events as a rookie? Or I'm curious what your mindset was when you first qualified.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't feel that at all. I felt like I was an imposter. You know, I was like, what am I doing here? You know, because surfing for me had always been an escape. Right. You know? And it was like, okay, I can be here for hours and I don't have to think too much. Right. You know?
That's right, yeah. It's a meditation, right, in a way, because you're only thinking about the one thing. Yeah. It's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and then especially with the waves around here and the draw coming off the bottom and you get slotted and you're like, oh, you know, and you can do that for hours all day. I'll do it for. Yeah. You know, and then I could just pass out at night. You know, and that's kind of how. And then just I got on tour and there was I think all that stuff that I've talked about earlier kind of started arising, you know, as a young man. And I didn't know how to deal with that. And I didn't have a mentor there that I could go, hey, man, this is really uncomfortable. I'm in my own skin. I'm not feeling that great. And this is really scaring me, what's going on. Yeah. You know, and so I kind of found other ways where, you know, I would kind of just shy away from the limelight and just kind of be introverted a bit. Yeah. And that was like, you know, that's how I dealt with it. Sure. You know, but when I look back on it now, you know, it was just I was sabotaging something that was meant to be, right? It was just my own mind playing tricks on me because there was that deep-seated unworthiness, not good enough, that kept arising, and I hadn't actually looked at it yet. Yeah, and it took me a long time to look at that. Yeah, but them first years on tour it was really hard. You know, I mean, in a sense, it was beautiful, but it was hard because I didn't know how to look at what was going on inside. You know, outside looked amazing. Yeah. But inside was there was wounds that were festering that I hadn't looked at yet.
Totally. I mean, we talked about it a little bit too, right? Like, I wouldn't overgeneralize, but you know, most, if not every single world champion we've had, men and women, have come from challenging backgrounds, you know, because there's a function of the ocean becoming that escape and becoming that surrogate parent. If you're spending so much time there to get away from something, you're probably going to get really good, right? But that doesn't, as you pointed out, address the trauma. And surfing is already kind of a bipolar activity, right? You're either up on a wave, it's the best feeling in the world, or just sitting there. Yeah. You know, or you're going surfing, or you're back in civilian life, or you're on a trip, or you're winning a heat, or you lose. You know, so it's already naturally like up and down. And when, as you pointed out, I don't think you're the only one that's just like, I don't know how to level out in this lifestyle, especially now that there's like a limelight on me.
And you know, Mick, for me, like, he's always been really good at, to me, dealing with stuff in the right way. You know, he's just so resilient, but he'll show up to something and just be as hard as it is. You will see that he'll go through it properly. You know, where that experience has kind of grown him to be kind of more more kind of understanding of what's going on for him. Where he, you know, whereas I felt like it took me a long time to actually be mature and face up to stuff on my own. You know, and you know, that's one of the things that with Mick, I just see that he's a man. You know, all the adversity he's had in his life and all the success, he's shown up to it properly. And you know, that's something I really admire about him. I remember I was going through a gnarly time in Portugal, and he was going for the world title with Kelly.
Right.
And he really seen that I was not doing good. And he goes, man, you got to get on a plane and come over and hang here with me. I was like, man, I can't. And he goes, yeah. He's like, you know, please, you know, you got to. And, you know, and at the time he was going for a world title, and he stayed up with me all night, a couple of nights, you know, and then he lost the world title to Kelly. And I felt so bad. I was like, oh man, I can't believe you know. And he goes, Dean, I just want to make sure you're okay. You being okay means way more to me than anything. And, you know, it was, I don't know, it just, you know, it just says a lot about his character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty consistent with what we've all experienced. Not just with Mick, but like you guys are all class acts, but Mick consistently. I mean, as horrifying as this is to bring up, but I remember the evening that Andy passed away in Puerto Rico, and I was going around with Brody Carr, was our CEO, and Woody was our head of security, and we were checking in on everyone. And I think Mick had taken it upon himself to bring a good chunk of the tour together at dinner, just because, as you pointed out, he'd been through trauma, and I was so impressed just by the natural leadership in doing that. You know, and I think, you know, your story backs that up too. He's just someone that recognizes what people need, which is really nice.
Yeah. You know, it's just, yeah, you know, it's, I'm grateful to have friends like him, and
Sure.
Yeah, it's good.
Despite maybe you feeling like an imposter on tour, you won a event.
Yeah,
like
I did.
2003 Quicksilver Pro Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what was the event like for you? What was winning like for you? And did it shake the imposter syndrome at all for you?
Gosh, I remember because I got a wild card into the I got a couple of injuries, and
Sure, yeah.
they gave me the wild card, and so I was just I just want to go out there and perform, you know, and it was, yeah, and it just kind of all just went my way, you know.
Yeah.
It just it felt unreal, and I remember Andy calling me, you know, after I won. He goes, "Your stats just went up, buddy," and you know, and then we partied that night and had a good time, and you know, it probably got me more introverted because there was just that more
attention,
limelight.
right? Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't know about this, you know, but you know, and it probably shied me away more, to be honest.
Right.
You know, at that time, because you know, I think I just turned 22 or something.
Right. You're super young.
Yeah. You know, and then it was there, so it was, you know, and my foundation was. You know, there wasn't much there at that time. You know, I was still trying to figure out what was going on, and surfing had always just been this escapism for me, where I could just get lost in it all day. Yeah. You know, I didn't have to think about anything else.
Right.
So that's, you know, and then to go from that to that, you know, it was always a dream. You know.
Turn up to the press conference now and talk about your title run and all. Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Yeah. As a kid, you know, you're like, wow, I don't know what's going on here. You know.
But you also seem like someone, it's one of the perks of the job. I get to talk to people I've been a fan of for so long. But even as a kid, like, you seem like you balanced the free surfing part really well, especially at that time, because I think it was, you know, today it's, you know, I think everyone can kind of do everything, but in that window there was a lot of people that were just singlet people, and then there were free surfing people, but you really existed in both planes, and maybe that had something to do with your sponsors too, but like at the same time, like it just seemed like all the stories we would get outside of the jersey with you is like, oh, Dino's gone surfing. Oh, he's the most barreled man in human history or whatever it is.
Yeah.
How did you deal with the free surfing part of the career during those years on tour?
I just want to surf. Like that's my favorite thing in the world is just to be out in the water in perfect waves with a couple of friends.
Yeah.
And I knew that's why I'd done it. It wasn't, contest wins and that, it wasn't so much about that. I was making a living doing that, so I was stoked. But, I just remember not going to Brazil and stuff, and I'd just go on a boat them in towers, and they'd be like, ring me up, like Brad Doherty, like, hey, man, what's going on? You're on a boat trip? Like there's a CT on in Brazil. I'm like, oh. Yeah.
There's an email in your inbox somewhere, I'm sure. It was always about that. And, I'd get to events and stuff I'd be dreaming about surfing perfect waves at other events, as all surfers would be. Do, yeah.
You'd be like, what? So, it was, I don't know. It was just, that's where I needed to be.
Fair enough. I was joking about this with Bugs last week too, because I said, again, like dating ourselves a little bit, before the information age, all you got from the tour was like a magazine profile and it's pumping, or a video highlights it's pumping. It's like every heat of every round of every event must just be cooking on the Dream Tour. Like that's the place to be. And then the reality, of course, is like, yeah, you try to have them in the best waves at the best time of year, but there's going to be slow heats. There's going to be tidal, wind, etc. And it's like the reality is, you have to work through a lot of maybe less than stellar conditions to try to get to the moment, right? Where it's like, got to the final, I get to test myself and the waves are pumping. This is what it's about.
Yeah, it definitely, it was... I look back on it and it was just, there's just connections you make, and the times you have with everyone and, getting to witness, Kelly and Andy's, rivalry at full flight, and seeing how they react with each other. And then Mick and Joel, growing from Andy and us all being together after every event, where everyone would catch up and celebrate everyone's win and, have a good laugh. It was, like you said at the start, it was like that was our family.
It's a family.
And I think when you're with that group of people, it's hard, it's just everyone is progressing so much that you just, I think there's always going to be some kind of feeling of unworthiness because, that it's not like you're, down the beach with some guy who's learned how to stand up and you're out the back ripping. It's like, you're with the guys that are meant to be here doing what they're doing, and that's your circle.
Right.
So I look at them times and just grateful because without them guys in that circle, I never would have pushed myself as much as I did.
Yeah. And we see it both with surfers and staff that travel on tour. When, you step away from the tour, it can be a pretty difficult adjustment. How was it for you at the end of 2010? Like so much was happening, probably both on and off tour in surfing. How was it for you stepping away from the tour?
It was difficult because, like I've mentioned earlier, there was all these wounds that were never addressed. I never tried drugs or alcohol until I was about 30, and then all that stuff was arising, and I found it, and then I started dabbling in things. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. This kind of gives me a relief, and I feel a bit better, and I don't have to do so much. I can just kind of do this, and I kind of feel happy for a bit. Yeah. And then that kind of turns into a habit where that's the only way, you start forgetting about what you really love doing. Yeah. And because that stuff inside is untreated. Yeah. Right. And so I went on that journey for probably about 6 or 7 years, and it was pretty difficult. Not difficult in a way that, like, it was just difficult because the way that I was showing up for myself.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I was so used to trying to get the best out of myself and that,
Yeah.
and being the best version of me. Then all of a sudden, I started grabbing for stuff that I actually, that was soothing them wounds, but they were undealt with, so it would flare up.
Yeah.
Right, and then it wasn't until I was about 37 or 38, I was just becoming someone I didn't want to be, and it was hard because, I remember Mick called me and just goes, man, you're becoming someone and I don't know who you are. And then an opportunity came up for me to go to rehab.
Yeah.
And I took it with both hands.
Yeah.
I went, yeah, let's do this. And then I was in rehab and it was like this one-on-one thing. And he goes, Dean, just so you know, drugs and alcohol are 10% of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about that as well. We'll see.
Yeah.
Let's see how you go for this 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I got to address all them things I had never addressed before. It was the first time I ever looked at it.
Yeah.
And I got to go through it with a person one-on-one who knew what he was doing. And, it was the greatest gift I was ever given.
Yeah. There's that, I think he's a doctor, that Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
And he, and to what you're saying, it's like, yeah, there are physiological reactions to substances, chemical reactions. He goes, but addiction, it's not to the substance, it's to the feeling of not being in pain for a temporary amount of time. He goes, and that's the work, and then back to what we were saying, he's like, I appreciate that way of thinking because he's swimming a little bit further upstream as opposed to like, we'll get you to kick whatever, but it's not addressing why you started in the first place kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's really brave, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love listening to Gabor Mate too, and he's got such a beautiful insight to that addiction and exactly why we actually choose that. Why we choose it. I mean, people can do it and it's fine. But I just know for me, it's getting away from some pain. It's giving me a relief from something that I have to address.
Yeah.
And so learning how to address that has been, the greatest gift that I've been given by other people as well that have gone through it and said, hey, man, mate, and just suggest, hey, maybe it's not such a good idea. If you're feeling that, maybe let's go to a meeting. Let's talk to someone. Let's do it. Because there's a different way here.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay. And it's just getting the right people around you to move through it properly.
Yeah. And I mean, as of today, we talked about how you're ripping still, but you look amazingly fit. Like throughout that process, were you still able to surf? Were you training, or was that when you kind of got through rehab and got on the other side of it, even though it's ongoing, obviously, but did you find like a renewed passion for surfing or kind of those things after the fact?
I did. I started to get this joy and this love for surfing again.
Yeah.
I remember times when the waves were pumping and I was just looking at it like, oh, now I'm going to go get a drink or something.
Right, yeah.
Whatever. And it started to, just fall away while I surfed.
Yeah.
I started foiling. I started doing things that I loved. I started being fit and just showing up for myself the way that I'd want to be.
Yeah.
And then through that, I would just show up for my friends properly without even actually knowing.
Because you're already in a better place yourself, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So your friends are struggling with stuff and and you give them what you've been given. And then, a year or two, like, oh man, that conversation we had, it's like, oh really?
Yeah.
Like, gosh, it was, you don't even realize it will have that impact because, before I'd probably be rocking up there around there with the alcohol and drugs or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So you get to, and that's the good stuff when you start actually seeing that you can make a difference in someone else's life. It's just not solely about me.
And you see that with rehab counselors too, because most of them are in recovery as well. And they often say, well, being a counselor helps me so much, right? Because I'm seeing the benefit of it and working through with someone else, and it keeps me sober, you know?
Yeah.
There's an element of that too.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, you know, like I love working with kids, you know, because I see myself in it and how much Rab mentored me and how much it changed my path.
Sure.
So that's why, you know, me and my a couple of friends, we started a brand called Youthh just to give that back to the kids. And, you know, I work with some kids around town that are foster kids. And,
Sure.
you know, like I see that for the last few years, just being with them and just showing up. That's all I got to do is show up. I don't have to do anything. That they've changed their life completely like I did.
Yeah.
You know, and they're the gifts of what I really want to do, because, you know, when I'm in just the bondage of Dean and just want more for him, you know, it's not fulfilling.
Doesn't fill you up. Never fills you up.
No.
Yeah.
So when I can actually be there and be a service, that's the good stuff, you know, and that's how I try to live my life day to day.
Amazing. Let's do one more break, and when we come back, we will wrap it up.
Okay.
All right, this is the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan here with Dean Morrison. You know, Dean, one of the things that, you know, I got to work with you when I first started, and you'd been on tour for a few years, but it wasn't really part of the public narrative about you then in a way that it probably would be if you fast forward today, right? But you're part Maori, and you're probably one of the first, if not the first, Maori surfer to qualify for the CT. You know, how big a part of that was in your life when you were younger? Was it always there, or was it something that you sort of come to later on, just in terms of understanding the culture?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Australia. And Mum, she was from a generation where they couldn't speak it at school or anything. And if they did, they got caned and things like that.
Yeah, right.
So it was never passed down to me.
Yeah.
It was always, obviously being darker skinned in that, I always kind of identified with it, you know, other Maoris and things like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, but, you know, just recently I went back with my son and took him back there, and so he could learn about our heritage.
Yeah, awesome.
You know, and our whakapapa, which is our family. And we hung on the mud eyes and, you know, meeting house. And just kind of, you know, just felt our way around it, and to see, just to connect, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, it's really beautiful. I've seen a big change in him with his confidence.
Sure.
It was just something that I wish that I knew about when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so to be able to give that to him, it's been really special.
That's awesome. And it tracks with what we were talking about before the break of, if not trauma, it's just a huge puzzle piece, right? That, as you said, for your son, he has that experience and he knows more about himself, you know, than he did before, more about you and more about his lineage. And whether that's subconscious or not, like, he's able to take that with him in life. And if it's not there, like maybe you had when you were younger, then sometimes you don't even know it's not there. You know, you're going, well, I don't have like the whole story of who I am, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, it's important for us all, you know, to know where we come from.
Totally.
And what's happened, so we can go, oh, okay, that stuff that's been there that I've felt, that's been there from a family before and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, so we can go, oh, okay, well, let's move into that, and, you know, and talk to our elders, and you know, when they have that information and give that to you, then it's actually passing down all that family heritage, you know, and that's why it's so important that we have them people in our lives, and you know, even if it's not family, it's just, for me, it was just being there, connecting, you know, with other people from around the area, and going, oh, okay, well, yeah, I see that this is where there's a part of me that's where I come from, and but also for me, I grew up here, and all my mates are from here that I grew up with, so that's my family here too,
Right?
And my roots are here as well, so it's just seeing that different parts of ourselves.
Yeah. We talked about you winning the 2003 Quicksilver Pro Gold Coast, and we're here this week. We just wrapped the first event of the Challenger Series, and they announced that Snapper Rocks is coming back to the CT in 2025. What are your thoughts on that? And then also just on Snapper Rocks as one of the waves that the world's best get to test themselves on.
I love that it's a CT. It's so good for our area. And for all the kids here, because I grew up with seeing all the best surfers in the world, and that how much that had an influence on me, just going out and surfing with them when they're here for that 2 or 3 weeks, and being out there and just engaging with them. That is the most important stuff, I reckon. And so, I'm stoked. And then to watch them, and it's. The wave it's just such a, it's probably one of the best 2 to 3 foot waves in the world, if not the best.
Sure,
how high performance it is. It's got a barrel, you got speed, and I was really, really stoked to hear that it was coming back.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit, you got this beautiful life here with your son, and you get your project with Claw and Bali, but the rest of 2024, what's that look like for you? You got any trips planned? You got any other projects happening, or just day to day?
Mate, well, yeah, I've been working on a project with Mick and Joel. Cool. I think what Mick's calling it a 43 degrees, I think. So just to kind of see, what we're doing now, and because them guys have they've shaped a lot of me, and vice versa, hopefully, but that's something that we've been working on.
Yeah.
So it would be cool to do a project with them guys again, and just connect.
Awesome. Well, and if the surfing we saw this last week's any indication, man, you guys are all still tearing the bag out of it. So that'll be exciting to watch. Get some trips out of that.
Yeah.
Before you go, we put out a feeler for questions for you on our Instagram and at the Lineup Pod. We got a lot back for you, but we've picked 3 out for you. So
okay.
The first question is from @r.brooks.anderson, who asks, how do you overcome fear and nervousness as a new surfer? I mean, for you it might be kind of hard because it felt like you were surfing from the jump. But in your experience, what do you recommend for new surfers to overcome nerves and fear?
It's just baby steps. I remember Robbie Madison. He was talking about how he done that big jump in Vegas, and how he just scaled it up 5. I think it was 3 feet at a time.
Right, yeah.
To get to there. And I think that's what you want to do. You don't want to, you want to just move into it a little bit at a time, and 1% better today. And, by the end of the year, you keep doing that, then, you're 365% better.
Yeah.
So it's just, you just really little increments at a time. And, just go easy on yourself. Don't think you have to, be where you want to be all at once, and just, just enjoy the process.
It's good guidance. Second question is from @Sanny.Hellman, who says, Dingo had the best roundhouse cutback as a Grom. What is your secret?
A good roundy always consists of a high line. You don't want to go too far to the bottom of the wave, and I guess that's it. You just kind of, you don't want to push too hard either at the start, because, if you're at the top of the wave, you can just kind of turn your board, and then you'll gain speed all the way through the turn. And then when you're coming back up, you just want to be able to pinpoint, where you want to hit it, and rotate your shoulders, and then try to compress out of it.
I'm all for these questions. I'm just going to have everyone start asking surfing questions. I'll just record those for myself. That's good tips.
Yeah.
Third question's from @Noah Purrington, who asks, How do you want your legacy to be in the surfing world?
Oh gosh, you know what? It would just be nice just to help the younger generation if I can. You know, that would be a really cool thing to create a brand where I've helped a lot of kids, and that would be ideal.
And you're doing it now with Youthh.
Yeah.
Youthh with 2 H's.
Yes.
Yep. Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. Well, we're down to the final segment of the podcast. It's the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. Okay. You only get one board set up for the rest of your life. Single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless.
Thruster.
Coffee or tea.
Coffee.
Burrito or pizza.
Pizza.
Last book you read.
AA book. The big book.
Best surf film ever.
Kelly Slater in black and white.
What is one wave you never have to go back to?
Samoa.
If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life and you can dreamcast it, perfect conditions, just your best friends, whatever, which wave would it be?
Oh, jeez. I'd have to say backdoor, maybe.
Love it. Best person to share a lineup with?
Best and worst was Mick and Joel.
Okay, well, that was the next question. Who's the worst? That would make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by...
Being here.
Dingo, thank you so much, man. I'm blown away by how much you've achieved so far in life, and thank you so much for the conversation. Still a huge fan of your surfing, and always been a fan of you as a human being, but appreciate you coming on the lineup and sharing everything with us, man.
Yeah, stoked. Thanks for having me, mate. It was a pleasure, Dave.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.